This August we went for a lovely weekend to Keremeos, BC, in Canada to experience John Reischman and the Jaybirds at the Old Gristmill. We had a wonderful time at this historic site. The gristmill was built in 1877 by one of the first white settlers on this unceded land of the Silks Okanagan people. The first settlers were grain farmers who brought red 5 grains to this part of the country. Red 5 is to this day one of the most cultivated types of wheat. The mill produced flour for the local population and soon also for the other European settlements, as well as selling it to the people seeking their fortune in the gold rush. In the morning we explored the historic site and admired the extensive gardens with their heirloom plants. We met Kyler Page. He was very generous with his time, and we exchanged stories of a shared passion and history of pipe organ building. But let's not go down that rabbit hole. Kyler is the historian who restored the old gristmill that had been converted to a chicken barn and an artist studio previously, when the local economy switched from grain production to orcharding. Kyler was also the director of the site for many years. Now in his 80s, he likes volunteering at the site and operating the mill. He explained the function of the water-driven mill to us in detail, which was fascinating. Unfortunately, the video of this did not turn out. Then we learned about the fact that in the milling process, the hull of the wheat berry, which we call bran, does not break down as fine as the rest of the grain. Today we take advantage of this fact because the oils in the brain make the flour go rancid after a while. So what we buy in the store today as whole wheat flour does not contain the bran. But I will let Kyler explain this himself.
Oh yeah, there's the whole, whoop. There's the whole wheat.
I've got 2 claws. You'll see the sifting machine behind you. The finest cloth is already installed there temporarily.
Okay.
The other end, half of it will be fine cloth, half of it will be coarser cloth. You get the finest flour here, coarser flour there. Whatever doesn't go through the cloth, it goes back, and that's the middlings.
And then you can
It's the phrase, something spare the middling. It's the middling phase. If I just take what's coming out and sift it.
Oh yeah, that's really fine.
I love the phrases that show up like Dusty Miller. Very real.
Yeah.
Maybe you could hold this for me. So that's what
It's a
came
beautiful
through the
piece.
finest cloth. Here's what didn't go through the cloth, but did go through the coarse cloth.
Okay,
And here's what didn't go through the coarse cloth.
so this is the middling.
That's the middling. And then this actually, by Canadian food standards, is fine enough to qualify as whole wheat flour.
Okay. And then that's your white flour on the end.
White flour naturally happens if one chooses. Now, for reality, what we're doing today is, and true whole wheat flour has it all in the natural proportion. So today what we're doing is making whole wheat flour,
Right.
which we sell and use in baking.
Like about half and half maybe, or
Well,
half white, half.
it's whatever is the natural, so this is the natural proportion.
Okay.
The miller who was running here in the 1880s would look at our product today, which is whole wheat flour, and he'd say, "Why are you making that old-fashioned stuff?" Because he had 3 grinders to very carefully separate the wheat. The first grinder would be not too tight and only touch. The idea of white flour making is Don't grind up the bran. Don't grind up the wheat germ. Let it fall apart naturally. So if you just crack a wheat berry, some white flour will fall out. The bran will come off as a loose jacket, bran flakes.
Right.
And that's the way bran works. That bran stays together if you don't grind it. And then the wheat germ is a little nugget of perfect likeness is a chicken's egg. There's a shell. When you crack it, it comes off in big pieces. That's exactly what bran does.
Okay.
And it's protective. It doesn't let oxygen get in.
Okay.
Once you crack it, oxygen can get in.
Great.
The wheat germ has oils that will go rancid once oxygen, or they come alive in a sense, but as long as oxygen isn't getting to it, it'll stay fresh. The wheat germ, as soon as it gets oxygen, it starts to oxidize. So if you separate the wheat germ as a little lump, then you have white flour that will taste good forever. And that's the origin of white flour. Reason why did they bother? Then they had a shelf life.
Yeah.
And so that happened just at the same time this mill was built. And Barrington Price, who owned this, was wealthy, and he bought the best and the newest.
Right.
So he started with a single grinder at whiskey head flour. 1877. 1881, there was a big trade fair where the new machines to do white flour were shown for the first time in competition with each other.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was in Cincinnati. It was written up in a miller's journal. And in 2 months after that journal, well, in the journal, it said the best machine on the floor in the competition was by James Jones of Louisville, Kentucky. And it goes on, the editors wish Mr. Jones all success, but in this time of rapid change, who can tell what will ultimately succeed? Well, a few years later, another machine was invented that did it a little better. And Jones machines are abandoned in all business. But by then they were filling factories because it was flour milling is a big business. So in a city, a factory would be a big place with a railroad running beside it. And when the new machines were invented that outdid the first one, they got rid of those machines, get a good price for the scrap metal, and they get the new ones in here. The railroad cars there waiting for flour. Well, here we were so isolated that even though we had those newest machines, the whole place was simply locked up and abandoned. And that was because the railroad came across Canada. It didn't come here, but it did put steamboats on Okanagan Lake, and Penticton sprung up just over the hill.
Yeah.
Now you could go there and get